Hi, I'm Matthew Brown, and this is my informative speech on the hammer throw. Most Americans do not even know what the hammer throw is, so I brought along one of my own hammers because I throw a hammer for the Clackamas track team to show you. It is a 16-pound weight. Right here we have a chain because I didn't want it to tear up the field where I threw, attached to a wire which is attached to a handle, and you take it and spin it around your head and do 3 or 4 consecutive turns to see how far you can throw it. The hammer throw is one of the least glorified events in track and field in the United States because it is not allowed until the collegiate level of athletics. In most European countries, the hammer throw is not restricted, therefore more people are exposed to it during high school, and they're also exposed younger because the Olympians train very early. In my speech, I'm going to tell you about the history of the hammer throw, explain why it's not popular in the US, and show you the technique the Soviets used to dominate the Olympics for many years. First, I'll tell you about the origins of the hammer. In the pre-Olympic era, the hammer originated with rich Celtic roots dating back to around 2000 BC. It started out as a chariot wheel throw where they would actually hold the axle with the wheel on the end and see how far they could toss that. Since then, it has evolved. It was brought up into the Highland Games where they had it as a boulder on a stick. So you just had basically a sledgehammer is what they would throw. During the 16th century, a drawing of King Henry the 8th, I believe, throwing the sledgehammer. There's a drawing of him throwing the sledgehammer, and that's how the hammer throw got its name, the hammer throw. Around 1875, they decided that the event needed to be standardized, which is when they brought in the 3.5. This isn't quite long enough, but it's a 4-foot wire attached to a 16-pound ball with a handle on the end, and they've actually come up with how big the handle can be this last year, so they've standardized it even more. But it's a 4-foot wire on a 16-pound ball with the handle, and you have to throw it within a 7-foot diameter circle. As well as the sector, it started out at 90 degrees, which is huge. Anybody could throw and get into the sector, and they brought it down since then to 35 degrees. It was introduced to the Olympics in 1900 and has been an Olympic event ever since. Second, I will tell you about the hammer throw in the US. In high school, it states that in 49 states in the United States, Rhode Island excluded, the rules state that you're not allowed to throw the hammer in high school because it tears up the fields, nobody wants it, it's very dangerous, they say, and it's just too hard for the high school kids, which is crap, because they bring the weight down in most high schools. The high school rules cripple the U.S. in the Olympics. We haven't had a gold medal finish for probably I think it was 75 years. So if in like Germany, let's say, they find the best hammer throwers in middle school and then they take them off and train them up so they end up in the Olympics because they've been training their whole lives to do this type of thing. In the U.S., they start in college and have to try and catch up on possibly 10 years of experience, which is almost impossible. Many of the natural hammer throwers that the U.S. develops or produces they never throw the hammer because you have to wait till college, so they're lost to other sports, or they never even know about it. The last American to win gold was Harold Connolly, and he is been trying to start the hammer throw all around the world, but especially in the U.S. He's been on the front lines going around to different schools introducing it. As far as the future for the U.S., hopefully it will become legal here in a while in high school. That way we can start to become a contender at the Olympics. But Other than that, there's a couple college athletes out there that are like, I know that there was 2 college athletes from U of O last year that threw over 200 feet on their first meet with the hammer, so they're looking good. Now that you know about the history and about how it's been in the US, I will explain actually how you throw it, that way you can sort of get a sense for it. To do this, I'm going to have to move you down to the floor, so keep all your hands and legs inside the rod at all times. I'm going to show you the steps that are taken to throw, because it's a lot of turning on the heel and toe, so I want you to get a good up close look. When you start, you'll do 2 lines, 1, 2, and then your right foot, you're on your toe, your left one, you're on your heel. You turn around to 180 degrees, take a step, keep going, take a step, and this whole time your weight is on your right foot. So while you are doing that, you would have taken the hammer, spun it around your head, and then when you start to turn, you just turn like this with your weight on the right, and it just propels you around. You basically want the ball to stay directly in front of you, so you're using the centrifugal force to throw it instead of pure strength. The old technique that they used to do, they would do the same heel-toe turns, but they would keep the ball behind them, and they would jump, sort of more of a jumping motion instead of a step. And then on that last one, the last turn before you release, they would just drag on it and throw it all with brute strength, it basically crippled all of those athletes. If you go and find any of the athletes that use that technique nowadays, they're probably hunched over because they tore up all the muscles in their back, and it's really bad for you. It will degrade you quickly. The new technique that I just showed you, Anatoly Bondarchuk, I believe. That's probably just butchered, but he was the Russian that developed that technique in the 1972 Olympic, and he just revolutionized the form. He led the Soviet Union to many victories and podium sweeps. I believe they had 4 or 5 Olympics where they took first, second, and third using that technique. The new technique is much more efficient, and you don't see the other technique nowadays unless a coach doesn't know how to teach the new one and he teaches the old one. But the old technique is far behind the new technique. The hammer throw, although not popular in the US, is an important track and field event. The hammer throw has Celtic origins dating back thousands of years. Out of the 4 main throws, the shot put, the discus, the hammer, and the javelin, it is by far the hardest to master. It requires speed, balance, and power. Hammer athletes are some of the most well-rounded in track. I believe the world record thrower, they measured how quickly he moved across that 7-foot diameter with his spins, and if you were to apply that quickness to the 100-meter, he would have beat it by, like, I think a second, they said, because he was moving at like over 60 miles an hour. It was crazy. It takes natural ability and the better part of your life to master, which is why it makes it difficult in the US to start in college and expect to become the best in the world, especially since the new technique developed by the Soviets is harder to master. It makes a huge difference. I hope that you learned something and that maybe you'll remember what the hammer throw is, because it's a great event. I feel very strongly about it, and that is my informative speech. Thank you.